Hi, this is DJ Nitro with the Northwest Music Biz Show. We're here at London Bridge Studios with the legendary producer Jonathan Plum. We're here to ask him a few questions and give you some insight on what happens here at the studio and maybe some funny stories from Jonathan. If you could, maybe tell us a little bit about the history of London Bridge Studio.
Sure, yeah. So the London Bridge was built in 1985. So is that 40 years, right? It's 40. Oh, it's almost 40 years old. So it was built by these brothers, Rick and Raj Parashar, and they built it themselves. And Rick ended up starting to produce himself and had some success with some bands like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Mother Love Bone and Temple the Dog and all that stuff. So that was in the early 90s. So that just launched. Really, the whole city, you know, became sort of a focal point of the music industry, and London Bridge is right in the center of that.
Yep.
So that's how this place got started.
One of the places that put Seattle on the map, for sure.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, the room behind us just has this legendary sound. There's the brick and the hardwood floor. It's a big room, and it was designed really, really well by people that knew what they were doing.
Awesome.
And, you know, when you hear these recordings, it comes across an intentional sound. And then they were smart enough to buy this amazing mixing board behind us, which is the Neve 8048. It's built in 1972. We can talk more about that later.
Okay.
But let's see, we were talking about.
So how did you get started, and with recording and being hooked up with London
so I kind of was like right time, right place. Let's see, I'd heard there was an internship opening at London Bridge, and I was at another studio. I was like 19, just totally into it, you know. And so a friend of a friend was like, "Yeah, I heard there's an internship opening up at London Bridge," and I think Pearl Jam had just come out, and Temple of the Dog had come out the year before that, and Mother Love Bone. So I was aware of London Bridge, but I just had no way of like getting in there at all. And I was like, "Oh my God, I wanted this internship!" And I just knew enough people, and I got my name in, and met with the guys, met with Rick Parashar, the owner, who was also the producer, and we just hit it off. But I was really young. I was 20 when I started working.
And then you end up doing Pearl Jam?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was like, it was crazy because it was that time, you know, like the Seattle thing had taken off at that point.
That.
So I was a little young. Like I was sneaking in 16, 17 and seeing Soundgarden, you know, when, you know, a lot of the older friends, they were part of the scene, and I was kind of like the young brother, you know.
Yeah, sneaking in with them.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up getting the internship here and then started working. I was basically the house guy. And it was basically me and Rick Parashar. There's no one else. It was just the two of us. You know, I'm here. All of a sudden, I'm working. Okay, I'm here every day. What are we doing? I'm looking at the calendar, and it's like, you know, March, Alice in Chains striked out for 2 weeks coming up. Like, okay, I guess I'm working with Alice in Chains. So Alice in Chains coming for 2 weeks. And Rick was the kind of guy that he was very organized. He'd work for 8 hours, and he'd leave. And he'd be like, all right, Plum, you know, so you stay as late as these guys want to stay and do whatever they want to do. It's like, fuck, okay. So now it's like, you know, 4 a.m. with Jerry and Sean, and we're listening to takes, and it was like, but, you know, I was 20 years old. It was a dream come true, you know. I had been listening to that Facelift record for 3 years at that point or something.
Yeah, 10 million albums later, you think you did a pretty good job, maybe not.
Well, I mean, I was just learning. I didn't really, at that point, I didn't really know what a producer did. So to get to watch Rick Parashar, then I started working with these other guys like Don Gilmore and Kelly Gray and, you know, these other pros that were doing it. And yeah, absolutely. I learned a lot from those guys. So real quick, what was crazy for me was that first 2-3 years that I was here, it was like, every other week or every other month, it was like another band, like Blind Melon or Candlebox. And I quickly like learned how to do this shit. Like, oh, you just put these microphones up here and you just tell them, nah, just do that take again. And it seemed really easy to me. And so I was like, this is great. You just do all this and you make hit records.
I get paid for doing this?
Yeah, it was easy and fun. And for like this time period, everything we did was huge.
Yes, that's right.
It was phenomenal. And then, you know, around 95 or so, I think Bush came out, and that just like turned the whole industry to like this pretty boy thing. And suddenly the records we were doing, you know.
Sorry, Bush.
Yeah, I mean, they really, to me, it was like just commercial enough, you know, like, and it lost the raw, cool thing that Seattle was doing. And it was like pretty and felt safe. And anyway, so then all these records we started doing, the records weren't coming out. You know, we're spending 2 months in here making a record with signed band with Rick and Kelly and shit. Like labels are starting to close and just the bands are breaking up. And then there's this dark period where we did a lot of work and nothing came out. I was like, oh, this is maybe not as hard as or as easy as I thought it was. you know, and then the industry's just fucking gone to shit
In
way
general,
further than that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a definite boom there from Seattle back in the day. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That you were involved in. You were involved in so many bands. What were some of your favorite bands that you did from back then, or ever?
Yeah, well, let's see. I mean, I became really good friends with the Candlebox guys. Those guys just treated me so well, and they like took me in, and they gave me a production credit on their first record because they recognized I got creative with their music. And I was the house engineer for the first Candlebox record. I would show up at 10 in the morning, clean the toilets, you know, come vacuum the floor, and come in, and then I started like helping arrange some songs, and they were so cool. They recognized that, and they gave me a credit for it, and it was super cool. Not every band, you know, recognizes that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So we became good friends. On the second record, I actually got like some residuals and stuff like that. And, so they were fun. You know, all those guys were cool. Like the Pearl Jam stuff. I was really young, and they were going through such a intense moment. Like it was all kind of weird.
Yeah.
But like Mike McCready was like, he was just a sweetheart and down to earth.
Did you have any formal audio training or anything to get you into the internship?
Yeah. So I mean, back then there was the home studio kind of didn't exist unless you had some decent money, and I had my folks were smart enough to get me a cassette 4-track was what they had, the technology at the time. So from like 13 to 16, I just sat in my bedroom with a 4-track, and I just learned. I totally self-taught, like had one book and just taught basically everything I knew myself.
Awesome.
And then worked my way up to other studios. But by the time I got to London Bridge, I was kind of green in the production side of things. Like I just had never seen it done before. But I knew the technical side I knew pretty well. I went to Shoreline Community College for a year and a half in their audio program, but I was already working here while I was going to school, and eventually I dropped out because it was like, I'm busting my ass at school in the morning, coming here recording Pearl Jam. It's like, I think I got it.
You mentioned Candlebox. Have you had any other, produce, add on to their songs or change arrangements and that kind of thing, or anything that stands out?
My involvement with bands?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not so much in the early. Well, it's tough to say. I mean, when you're in the studio, you know, who's ever in the room and has a voice is affecting things.
Yeah.
And like my relationship with this guy Rick Prosher, we became partners in a way, and so he would listen to me, and my voice might get onto the band, or sometimes he would just allow me to talk right to the bands. So that was my amazing time for me, where I was involved in all these projects, and to some degree I was definitely affecting the music. You know,
Awesome.
Like little side story on the Blind Melon record, the No Rain song. That's me snapping the intro and the outro, because Rick and the drummer, Rick wasn't able to snap for some reason. He had jewelry on or something. He's like, Plum, go out there and snap. So that's my snaps.
Awesome.
No Rain.
Have you had any funny story? Do you have any funny stories or any shenanigans you can tell us, maybe without naming names, or if you want to name names?
I was thinking about that. Now I'm glad you asked me some of these questions earlier, because I had just a second. So there's a vocal booth back over there that I don't know if you can see, probably not, but usually it's all glass mirrors, or the studio's filled with glass. You can see the line of sight is really good. I've had a handful of singers sing naked in the vocal booth. And those types of people just, I guess, don't care who's around, because the window's open right up to the lounge. And so there'll be people mingling around in the lounge, sometimes strangers, and here's dudes singing nude in the vocal
singing
booth.
in the shower, huh?
Yeah. Sweaty Nipples. They were very nude-oriented
Oh, yeah.
in the studio for some reason.
I saw Sweaty Nipples back in the day, and
Oh,
what a
man.
fun band that was.
Well, one of my favorite Sweaty stories happened here in this room. There's like 6 of them, and they're all big guys, and they're just so loud and whatever. And they're just kind of punk rock stuff. And so Kelly Gray, I was with Kelly Gray at the time, and we were mixing in here or something. And they'd all come in moshing, the 6 of them, and they'd come up here, and then one guy would jump on the couch and stage dive onto the other 5. And then they'd carry him out like he was like crowd surfing, and then they'd carry him out. This was just between the 6 of them. So they'd like come in, do this whole thing, and then come out again.
Wow.
Like a little virtual mobile stage mosh pit.
Musicians that want to come in here, do you have any advice for bands before they come to a studio? Any pre-preparation, things they should, some gotcha stuff that they need to look out for?
Sure. Look at bands like Mechanism. Watch what they're doing, because they show up super prepared.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean,
I think we know who Mechanism is.
yeah. I mean, having your guitars looked at before they come in, changing strings, just all the normal stuff that bands for some reason tend to not do sometimes. And what happens is you get in the studio and suddenly your guitar won't get tuned. And you got to have your guitar in tune to make a good recording.
Yeah.
So now we're spending, sometimes hours trying to get a guitar in tune. And so when you're paying these big bucks, for your 10-hour slot or something.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just obvious shit. I don't know why people don't.
Yeah, you'd think so.
I mean, they're the ones spending the money, and it's their music that they should care about it.
That's why we're asking the question. Not everybody maybe thinks of these things,
Yeah,
it's obvious.
That's a good point.
To some people.
Another thing that maybe, just some bands get it and some bands don't. But having these tough communication things thought out beforehand, like if there's questions about parts of a song, like sometimes bands will not be sure of what they want in the studio. And, if they can get that stuff sorted out before they come in, so everyone knows what they want, they know what they want to do, that saves a lot of time as well.
Awesome. Can you tell us about some of the recent artists you've had in here and what's going on with London Bridge and
Sure. Well, I mean, the one take thing, Seattle one take, Mama Lynn Management, right?
Yeah, if you could explain
that's
that.
That's a great example.
I had heard of it, but I didn't know what it was. If you could maybe explain that a little bit.
Sure, yeah. So he's booking one day, a 10-hour slot, bringing 4 bands in, and each band gets 2 hours to play, one take, and the idea is to do the one take live. And, basically they have 2 hours to get their best take down and break it down, put up the next band, and Mechanism was a part of that band, and Window Pane, and Amadon, and tell me the name of the... Witchburn, and Rainstone, Clover Jane. Just a ton of great bands. And that's a great situation where you see when a band has their shit together, what they can do live in the studio can be amazing. It's really
awesome.
Cool. I should mention too, London Bridge. This last year we started a record label called London Tone Music, where
awesome.
We got a couple partners and we're signing singles rather than this sort of like the new industries. We're not signing whole bands. We're signing just a single song. And this last year we did a campaign where we signed and produced and released a song a week for a year. And we called it 5252.
How's that going?
Well, it's done. Actually, we just sold it at the Triple Door on Thursday with our little showcase party. But it's been good. It's been a lot of work. And you guys should check that out. London Tone, 5252. What else is happening? Oh, and the Neve board. Right. So the vintage Neve, it's an 8048, and it's British. It's 1972 it was built, designed in the late 60s. Totally integral part of London Bridge in that it has a very specific sound to it, and it's not something that you can replicate. And it's very expensive to maintain. And it's gotten so expensive to maintain that we found out that we can't afford to keep it. At least projecting out another like 4 or 5 years, it's going to become difficult for us to hang on to it. So we've launched a campaign to raise money to refurbish it so we don't have to expend the expensive maintenance costs that we are spending on right now. So if you're interested, on the back, maybe you can show this in the video, on the back side there's a plaque where you can buy a slot to put your name or your band or whatever you want to put, and that money goes right to getting this thing refurbished so it can stay here and keep making the great records that we make here.
Cool.
Yeah.
So a band wants to come in here. What are your rates, and how does it break down hourly or by project, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so it's $10,000 an hour, and you guys are like, look at me so seriously.
I know. I kind of bid on that one. I'm pretty naive when it comes to stuff like that. That's why I'm not our treasurer.
Like I wish, man. I'm not going to name rates, but we're competitive, and I'd say we intentionally keep our rates so that local bands can afford us. I mean, you think about if you got 5 guys in your band, and everyone can pony up $100. You're gonna get in the door. Yeah. So it's like, if you're serious about your music and you want a good recording, you can get in here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what's your availability? Say if I wanted to book my band in here, how many months or weeks advance notice?
It all depends. Weekends tend to go quicker, but yeah, we're available. We're here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I got to read a couple questions here real quick. Okay. What's the best way to get a hold of you if somebody wants to book time in the studio?
Just website.
That is
Google London Bridge Studio.
Yeah.
LondonBridgeStudio.com. Or email info@LondonBridgeStudio. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And anything that we didn't get a chance to cover, maybe you want to talk about, or
Let's see. I don't know. I'm super excited for what you guys are doing here, and I'm super happy to be a part of it.
We're honored to have you on the show.
Yeah.
The Northwest Music Biz Show, we're really honored to have you as one of our guests. Even though virtual, this is awesome that you let us come in the studio and make the video and everything.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for supporting us as well.
Thank you so much. Jonathan Plum, legendary producer, London Bridge Studios.
Did we...